This land, a crossroads of continents and civilizations, has been a stage for some of history's most enduring stories. A place of profound faith, epic conflicts, and cultural fusion. This is the story of ancient Palestine, a journey from the Bronze Age world of Canaan
to the iron fist of the Roman Empire.
Our story begins in the late Bronze Age, an era of unprecedented global connection. In a region known as Canaan, a collection of city-states flourished between approximately 1550 and 1200 BCE.
Situated on a vital land bridge connecting the great empires of Egypt and Mesopotamia, Canaan was a hub of trade and diplomacy.
However, this fragmented political landscape was not independent. It fell under the imperial control of New Kingdom Egypt, which sought to secure its northern frontier and control these crucial trade routes.
The Canaanites were a Semitic-speaking people who developed a sophisticated urban culture. But these city-states, each with its own king, were vassals to the pharaoh. Egypt maintained control through a clever system.
They allowed local rulers to govern, but installed Egyptian governors and commissioners in key locations to oversee them.
They also established a network of military garrisons in strategic cities like Gaza, Jaffa, and Beth Shan to project power and ensure loyalty.
The famous Amarna letters, a trove of diplomatic tablets from the 14th century BCE,
vividly illustrate this, with Canaanite rulers professing loyalty and pleading for Egyptian aid against their rivals.
The primary goal of Egyptian control was the extraction of resources.
Vassal states had to pay regular tribute in the form of agricultural products, raw materials like copper, and luxury goods. In return, the Egyptian presence brought a degree of stability that fostered international trade. Egyptian luxury items flowed into Canaan, and the local elite even adopted Egyptian burial customs and symbols, a process of Egyptianization.
Canaan's geopolitical importance was magnified by its position as a contested buffer zone between Egypt, the powerful Hittite Empire to the north. This rivalry for dominance was a defining feature of the age, culminating in the famous Battle of Kadesh around 1274 BCE. The constant great power competition contributed to the region's instability, even as it was integrated into Egypt's imperial system. A significant contribution of the Canaanites was the development of one of the earliest alphabetic scripts, a revolutionary simplification of writing that would eventually influence the Phoenician, Greek, and Latin alphabets we know today. Around 1200 BCE, the interconnected world of the late Bronze Age underwent a rapid and violent disintegration. This system's collapse, likely driven by a combination of factors, including climate change and famine, severed vast trade networks and led to the fall of empires. Egypt survived, but its imperial control over Canaan vanished, creating a power vacuum. Into this chaos came new groups, including the Philistines, one of the Sea Peoples. Egyptian inscriptions identify them as the Peliset, who were repelled by Pharaoh Ramesses III and subsequently settled on the southern coastal plain.
Their Aegean origins are strongly suggested by their unique material culture. They introduced distinctive pottery,
which evolved into the iconic Philistine bichrome ware, with its red and black decorations of birds and fish. The Philistines' advanced iron-working technology gave them a significant military advantage. They established a pentapolis, a powerful confederation of 5 city-states: Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath.
At the same time, the archaeological record reveals a population explosion in the central hill country,
with hundreds of new settlements appearing. This demographic boom points to the emergence of the group known as the early Israelites.
According to the biblical narrative, the constant military threat from the well-organized.
Philistines was the impetus for these tribes to abandon their loose confederation and unite under a king.
Saul, the first king, laid the groundwork for a centralized administration and a standing army. But it was his successor, David, who is credited with consolidating the kingdom. In a masterful political move, he conquered the neutral city of Jerusalem and established it as his capital, uniting the northern and southern tribes. By bringing the Ark of the Covenant there, he also centralized the nation's religious life. David's son, Solomon, is remembered for an era of peace, wealth, and extensive building projects.
The historical scale of this united monarchy is one of the most hotly debated topics in archaeology.
The minimalist school of thought argues that the biblical story is a later, idealized creation. They propose that 10th century Jerusalem was just a small village, and David and Solomon were, at best,
Local chieftains whose influence was greatly exaggerated. They use a low chronology
to argue that monumental buildings attributed to Solomon were actually built a century later.
On the other hand, the maximalist view contends that the biblical account reflects a historical reality, even with some embellishment.
Proponents point to compelling evidence, like the Tel Dan Stele, a 9th century BCE inscription
that provides the first extra-biblical evidence for the house of David. They also cite the discovery of sophisticated
cities the Bible says Solomon fortified outskirts, and monumental structures in Jerusalem that some archaeologists identify as King David's palace.
Solomon's most famous project was the first temple in Jerusalem. Direct archaeological proof is elusive, as the Temple Mount cannot be excavated. However, the temple's architectural design described in the Bible shares similarities with other temples from that period found in Syria. After Solomon's death around 930 BCE, the kingdom fractured into two rival states. The northern kingdom of Israel was larger and wealthier, but politically unstable. The southern kingdom of Judah was smaller and more isolated, but had political stability under the continuous Davidic dynasty. Its economy eventually shifted to specialized production of olive oil and wine, managed by a royal administration that used LMLK, or belonging to the king, seals on its storage jars.
The northern kingdom's prosperity made it a target for the expanding Neo-Assyrian Empire. Around 722 BCE, the Assyrians conquered the capital, Samaria. Following their standard imperial policy, the Assyrians deported a large part of the population, who became known as the 10 Lost Tribes, ending the Kingdom of Israel's independence.
The kingdom of Judah survived for another century, but eventually fell to the next great power. In 586 BCE,
the Neo-Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II conquered Judah, destroyed Jerusalem and its temple, and
exiled the kingdom's elite to Babylon.
In 539 BCE, the Babylonian Empire fell to the Persians under Cyrus the Great. In a remarkable turn of events, Cyrus issued a decree around 538 BCE, allowing the exiled Jews to return to their homeland. This policy of cultural tolerance was designed to secure loyalty across his vast empire. Cyrus not only permitted the return, but also returned the sacred temple vessels and authorized funds for reconstruction. The first group of returnees, led by Zerubbabel and the high priest Joshua, began the return to Zion. Under Persian rule, Judea was organized as a semi-autonomous province called Yehud Medinata. It was governed by a hybrid system. A Persian-appointed governor handled civil affairs, while the high priest in Jerusalem held immense religious and internal authority, creating a de facto theocracy.
the rebuilding of the Second Temple began soon after the return, but was quickly halted by opposition from neighboring peoples. Urged on by the prophets Haggai and Zechariah, work resumed, and the temple was finally completed and dedicated in 516 BCE. Decades later, in 445 BCE, Nehemiah, a Jewish cupbearer to King Artaxerxes I, received permission to rebuild Jerusalem's ruined walls. Despite intense opposition, Nehemiah armed the builders and completed the walls in a remarkable 52 days, securing the city.
Around 458 BCE, the priest and scribe Ezra arrived from Babylon, authorized by the king to enforce the law of Moses. He was pivotal in consolidating post-exilic Jewish identity by instituting the Torah as the community's definitive legal and spiritual code, cementing its central role in Judaism.
The Persian Empire's dominance ended with the meteoric rise of Alexander the Great. In 332 BCE, his armies conquered the region, ushering in the Hellenistic period. Alexander's conquests brought Greek language, philosophy, and culture, Hellenism, to the Near East, creating deep divisions within Jewish society. After Alexander's death, his empire was divided. For over a century, Judea was under the relatively peaceful rule of the Ptolemaic dynasty of Egypt. However, around 200 BCE, the Seleucid Empire, based in Syria, seized control. Tensions escalated dramatically under the Seleucid king Antiochus IV Epiphanes. In 167 BCE,
he launched a brutal campaign of religious persecution, outlawing core Jewish
practices and desecrating the Second Temple by dedicating it to Zeus and sacrificing a pig on its altar. This assault on Judaism itself sparked a fierce rebellion, ignited in the village of Modane
by a priest named Mattathias and his 5 sons.
After Mattathias's death, leadership fell to his son, Judah, known as Maccabee, the Hammer.
A brilliant military strategist, Judah used guerrilla tactics to win stunning victories against larger Seleucid armies.
In 164 BCE, his forces captured Jerusalem, cleansed the desecrated temple,
and rededicated it, an event commemorated by the Jewish festival of Hanukkah.
Judah's brothers Jonathan and Simon continued the fight, skillfully exploiting the weakening Seleucid Empire. After Jonathan's death, his brother Simon captured the final Seleucid stronghold in Jerusalem in 141 BCE. A great assembly then appointed Simon as hereditary high priest, commander, and ethnarch,
officially founding the independent Hasmonean dynasty. Under his successors, the kingdom achieved full independence around 110 BCE, creating the largest sovereign Jewish state in over 400 years.
The Hasmonean dynasty, however, was plagued by internal strife. A bitter civil war erupted between 2 brothers, Hyrcanus II and Aristobulus II, providing the perfect opportunity for a new superpower to intervene: Rome. Both brothers appealed to the Roman general Pompey the Great, who was campaigning in the east. Pompey ultimately sided with the more pliable Hyrcanus, whom he saw as a more reliable Roman client. Enraged, Aristobulus defied Rome and fortified himself within Jerusalem's Temple Mount. This led to a brutal 3-month siege that ended in a slaughter. In an act of profound sacrilege, Pompey and his officers entered the temple's most sacred chamber, the Holy of Holies. This conquest in 63 BCE was the definitive end of Hasmonean independence. Judea was made a tributary state to Rome. In the ensuing power vacuum, the shrewd and ruthless politician Herod rose to prominence. In 40 BCE, with Roman backing, the Senate declared Herod king of the Jews. After a 3-year war, he captured Jerusalem in 37 BCE and began his long, controversial reign. Herod was a master of political survival. A loyal friend of Mark Antony,
he found himself on the losing side after the Battle of Actium. In a bold move, he met the victor, Octavian, frankly admitted his loyalty to Antony, and pledged the same unwavering allegiance to him. Impressed, Octavian confirmed Herod's kingship and even expanded his territory.
To glorify his reign and display his loyalty to Rome, Herod became one of the greatest builders of the ancient world. He built the magnificent port city of Caesarea Maritima, with an artificial harbor built with hydraulic concrete. He constructed impregnable fortress palaces like Masada and Herodium. His most famous project was the lavish rebuilding of the Second Temple in Jerusalem, a monumental undertaking that began around 20 BCE.
Herod's reign was a paradox. He was a Roman to the Romans, but to many of his Jewish subjects, he was a foreign usurper of Idumean Arab descent. His Hellenistic tastes, heavy taxes, and acts,
like placing a golden eagle at the temple entrance, caused deep resentment. His rule was marked by brutal paranoia.
He executed his Hasmonean wife, Mariamne, and several of his own sons to eliminate any threat to his throne.
The tensions Herod managed to suppress erupted after his death in 4 BCE.
Decades of escalating conflict under direct Roman administration culminated in 66 CE in the First Jewish-Roman War. In 70 CE, they laid siege to Jerusalem, destroying the city and Herod's magnificent temple. One final, desperate bid for freedom, the Bar Kokhba Revolt, was brutally suppressed in 136 CE. In the aftermath, the Roman Emperor Hadrian, seeking to erase the Jewish connection to the land,
renamed the province Syria Palestina, a name derived from the ancient Philistines.
This marked the definitive end of ancient Jewish political independence in the land.
From the city-states of Canaan to the might of the Roman Empire, the ancient history of Palestine is a story of constant change, of cultures colliding and coalescing. It is a land shaped by faith, conflict, and the rise and fall of empires.
The echoes of this long and complex past, from the emergence of new peoples in the wake of collapse to the transformation
of faith in the face of exile, continue to resonate to this day.
A testament to the enduring power of this small but significant corner of the world.